Hello, welcome. This is an introduction that I am recording after the fact, so there are a lot of cards in this reading, but I am just showing the card that is representative of it. This was originally part of a pick-a-pile reading that was for messages from your quiet child, but as quiet children are quiet, they are holding a lot in. And so a lot of cards came out for each pile. By far, the most came out for this pile. And I wanted to do this little introduction to let you know this is a kind of a bumpy ride. Now it's definitely a bumpy ride, but it is an important one. So thank you for joining me. Please note that this is a general reading for the collective, so some of it may resonate, some of it may not. But your intuition will probably quite sharply let you know if this is your child that I am speaking about here. It was a difficult reading for me to do, so I apologize in advance for stumbling over my words and for the changes in my voice. Connecting with this child's energy was very painful, but very necessary. If this is your kid, I wish you all the love in the world. Okay, here we go. The crystal for this pile is a Sunstone, and it is associated with the sign of Leo, with numerology the number 1, and the sacral and solar plexus chakra. It is also generally a crystal of strength, leadership, prosperity, but also protection, in particular from darker or evil spirits / energy. Something in this image about this kitty may call out to you. You may have a curious child, a child who's online quite a bit, and a child who may wear glasses but may also have a bit trouble seeing what is around them, or having a clear vision in some way. Something is clouding this child's vision, and usually with the messages from your child cards, I don't look at them prior, but I did look at these prior to doing this reading, because when I was shuffling them, one of them had fallen out, and I didn't discover it until the piles were all done, and it fell face up. So I saw what the message was, and so I just have to prepare you that this is not going to be the easiest reading. We have a kid who needs help. This is the card that fell out. Someone is hurting me, and I'm too scared to tell you. Someone with authority over me is abusing their power. Sometimes I don't understand what you're asking me to do. I'm confused and need to talk. I feel insecure about my body or appearance, or both. And I cry when I'm alone. These messages and the fact that Sunstone is associated with the solar plexus and the sacral chakra. I have a very, very strong feeling that this is a child who is being abused. In particular, they are being sexually abused, and they need help. The other cards in the pile may give some clues to you as to whether or not this is your child, But the most important clue that you're going to have is your intuition combined with very keen, very objective observation. I do have a deck here, an undue influence deck, and I can select a few cards from this deck to try and give an indication of who the individual may be that is hurting this child. But I want to stress that your intuition and observation need to overrule anything that comes out of that deck, which I'm going to pull at the end, because this is a general reading for the collective. And in these sorts of situations, it's important to move carefully and strategically. That's not to say move slowly. If you feel that your child is this child, if you feel your child is in danger, then you absolutely do want to address that immediately. But there are two things that I want to stress here. And I apologize for being faltering in my speech. It's a very difficult energy. The thing is that it's very important to control your reactions. In order for your child to feel safe communicating with you, it's important that your responses be measured and that you are presenting stability to your kid. Because if you become upset in front of them, that is going to largely impact their level of experiencing a feeling of safety, communicating with you about this. I also want to say, I'm just going to say these things as a kid who was molested. Okay, I'm going to tell you a few things that you don't usually hear when people talk about this situation. The first thing is, kids feel guilty about this. They have no reason to feel guilty about it, but they do. And there is going to be some little tiny way or a big way that this has been twisted either in the child's mind because of the trauma, or by the person or persons that is or are abusing the child, to feed into the idea that they are somehow at fault for this. It's a thing to make the kid feel like if they tell, they're going to get in trouble too. It's also a thing to use a child's natural bodily responses against them. And that's a really difficult area to step into, but I am stepping into it because it is a barrier to kids getting help. Is if somebody messes with them and their body reacts, even though they don't want it to, then they feel like they are complicit in the abuse. And that this complicity somehow cancels out it actually being abuse. It does not. No adult ever has a right to abuse a child, especially not in this way. It does not matter if the child is coerced into it or if they are saying no. The adult does not have the right to violate a child's boundaries. Another thing I want to point out, besides changes in the way a child comes across, their affect, a usually cheerful child becoming sullen or irritable or withdrawn, abnormally quiet, are indicators. A child who suddenly is having disordered eating, because that's a lot of times a coping mechanism trying to control something, because that's basically the only thing they can control is the food that they eat, take into their body or don't. Putting on weight, being lethargic, in particular wearing really baggy clothes, putting their hands in their pockets and pushing them outward to make sort of a tent is a protective mannerism. If their posture used to be normal and now they're starting to hunch over, if they are very inattentive where they were not before, where they were curious before, or if they're avoidant. If your child was curious about things and now avoids those things that they enjoy, or anything new. If all they want to do is watch the same episodes of the same cartoon over and over and over again, and they have no interest nor desire, and in fact probably even some may show an aversion to any new material, media-wise, being introduced to them, that is also a clue. Because they're trying to avoid triggers. The familiar episodes that they watch over and over and over again, they know that road, they know that path. Anything new is danger to the child. Obviously, if there are people that the child interacts with that they seem uncomfortable around, that's a big clue. If your child has stomach issues that don't seem to relate to any previously diagnosed medical issue, they don't relate to specific foods the child may have eaten that it's obvious disagreed with them. I'll just give you an example here. I was being molested by my friend's stepfather. And for a long time, I did not see that friend. And then the friend invited me to a birthday party. I went, and everything seemed fine. I was having a great time. And then the stepfather came home. And 1 minute after that, I was on the phone asking my mom to come get me because my stomach hurt. I did not realize until I was an adult the connection there. But there's a big connection. There's neurons in our stomachs as well as our hearts and our brains, obviously. And there are serotonin receptors in the stomach. And there's a big connection between what can be termed, nervous stomach and repressed negative emotion. So I wanted to give you those indications. And a couple more. If your child doesn't want to take a bath or shower, if they give you a hard time about that, or if they go into the bathroom and pretend to shower, but they're really just standing in the tub with the curtain or the door closed, that's a clue. Since disordered eating can be hidden, does your child avoid their lips touching the fork? Do they take the food off of the fork with their mouth open and use their teeth to drag the food off of the fork? If they do, then they may have disordered eating. They may be restricting food, or they may be purging what they eat. So those are a few things that you can look out for that I personally have not heard talked about. It's not the popular go-to information when people talk about what signs to look for in your child. And I will find some traditional and expert information and put links in the description for this. The insecurity about body and appearance. A kid that's hiding the fact that they're crying because they don't want you to know, because they're ashamed. They have nothing to be ashamed of, but that is a legitimate feeling that kids have when this is happening to them, because they have been made to feel that way. Not only just by the fact of being abused, but also, you know, that's what abusers do. When somebody's taking advantage of a kid, when somebody is violating a kid, they have a whole routine to do a number on the kid to make sure the kid doesn't tell anybody. And one of those tricks is scaring the kid, either by telling him you're going to get in trouble, or sometimes it's I'm going to hurt your parents, or I'm going to hurt, you know, a pet that you love, or I'm going to hurt one of your siblings. They use their authority, even if the authority is only the fact that they are an adult. They use that against the child. And the confusion here is because how can anybody have clarity when this is happening to them? How can even an adult, if an adult is being abused, how can they have clarity? So you can't expect a child whose brain is still developing to be in the here and now. That is the last thing that they want to do, is be in the here and now. Because the here and now is where this is happening. Let's see what Michael has to say here. Okay. It says you created this situation and you have the power to change it. This could speak to the person being somebody that you introduced into the child's life. It is not saying that this is your fault. And Michael wants that to be clear. It's the card that comes closest to what his message in this reading is supposed to be, which is the last part, you have the power to change it. And I'm hearing that you created this situation actually specifically refers to the power that we all have to create our environment and our reality. A lot of times it is that's a difficult idea to grab onto, because we can find ourselves in living situations that we did not anticipate. Or we can find ourselves interacting with people whose character we have unfortunately misjudged. But the key takeaway in this is not that part. It is the part that you have the power to change this. You have the power to get your child out of this situation. To get your child away from these people or person. It's going to be different for your situation. You will know. Your heart is going to tell you. Now, your brain may argue with you. It's a tendency of good-hearted people to look at other people and think they are good-hearted too. And people that are not good-hearted use that to their advantage and will play up those aspects that they feel will allow them to get one by on you. We can have things right in front of our face, and because we have made up our mind prior that somebody is a quote-unquote good person, it can blind us to certain things that, if we were outside of the situation, would be alarming. Say, for instance, an older man who is a perpetual bachelor, who always seems to have a young fatherless boy around him for some reason. I was going to bring up another one, but I don't think that it's really germane to this. I don't want to, it's a similar example, but I don't want to give the impression that that is the exact situation. I said it for a reason, though, so if it's keying off something in you, please pay attention to that. And know that the desire to not see this is strong in all of us. When I saw this card fall, the first card here, I even had a tendency to be like, well, do I really want to say that's what I mean? The minute the card fell, I knew what was going on. And I started crying. But even still, I wanted to say, no, this isn't the case. And I don't even know who this child is. This does not have to do with me. But even I wanted to be in denial about it. With, my guidance telling me, no, don't be in denial about it. This is why you're doing this. So if I, far removed from your situation, am having that feeling of denial, then I can only assume it is going to be just as strong, if not stronger, in you. So I just want you to keep that in mind if you can. That it is a human tendency to want to deny these things, to say that they are not going on. Look at your kid. Is your kid a happy kid? Does your kid get excited about anything? Or are they fearful? Are they irritable? Are they angry? Are they acting out? Are they suddenly a discipline problem, quote unquote? Because it's usually the kids that are the most, quote unquote, trouble, which is some bullshit, but I'm going to reserve my little speech on that. But it's usually the kids that are the most of an issue, that are in the most pain. And we have a tendency to want to push away the kid that is acting out and say they're a bad kid. There's no such thing as a bad kid. Okay, from the Sacred Mother's deck, we have Hera. Amplified awareness. So again, this speaks to observing your child, observing the people who are around your child, who influence your child. Unicorn cards, we have magic, polarity, gentleness, discernment, and leadership. This is a child who is a very gentle soul. And they are full of light. And that is one of the big reasons why they are prime target of people who would seek to take advantage of them, to abuse them, to feed off of them, frankly. And polarity, you have the white horse here and the dark horse. Light side, shadow side. The dark horse is above the white horse. There is a shadow that is covering your child's light. This situation is a dark cloud over your kid. It's dampening their magic. It's dimming their light. You need to use your discernment in handling the situation. And I'm sorry to say need. I'm just going to plow through here, and I'm probably not going to state everything perfectly. This is the first reading that I've done that has a situation like this. So please don't take my saying you need. I'm not trying to in any way be negative towards you. I'm just trying to get the message out that my guides and these cards and your kid is asking me to get out for you. Discernment is very important, but to be gentle about it, to tread carefully in gathering the information. You want to move swiftly, but you don't want to be a bull in a china shop, because not only can that cause more harm to your child, but it can give a predator an advantage. Just straight up. Any misstep you take, that predator will use and exploit. And they may even throw some obstacles in your way. So then, if you react poorly, they can say, oh, but here, look at this, and take the attention away from what is actually happening and put it on to a manufactured problem where you are at fault, or where you are crazy or delusional or some other sort of ridiculous manufactured crap that is just designed to obscure the fact that they're a predator. So it's very important to take a stand, but to do it wisely, to do it carefully, to think about your moves before you make them, to be strategic. Now, I haven't looked at these, so I don't know. Okay, I need more sleep. I miss a family member who has crossed over. I feel like I always mess things up, and it makes me sad. And here we go. I'm having issues with food. So, your kid is exhausted from the stress and the trauma of this, from the repeated thoughts of how it is their fault, of how they are bad in whatever ways, including their appearance, including their ability to feel capable, to feel empowered. It's like if you take a step, and every step that you try and take, you fall. When you're trying to learn to walk, then you're never going to be confident about walking or doing anything else, because what could be quote unquote more simple than walking, right? Obviously, I don't mean that literally. I'm saying as an example of an invalid or inaccurate mindset. And issues with food, as I said before, it's a way to control the only thing they really have power over. And, they're vulnerable in the first place because of unaddressed grief. Not saying that it's their fault, not saying it's your fault or anybody's fault. Saying that a child who is sad or in pain for whatever reason is going to be a child that a predator goes after before they go after the kid that is self-assured and feels safe and secure and has a lot of support around them. the family member is somebody who provided this child with support and nurturing. And in the absence of that support and nurturing, it left a little opening. An opening that someone could get into and exploit to groom a child, to take advantage and manipulate situations and environmental factors, and be able to prey on your kid. The divine animal card is the white stag with protection. Trust your intuition. You have the power to end this. It is not a pleasant situation, but you cannot avoid an unpleasant situation and expect that it will change. You have to meet it head on. And like the stag, you have some a bit of weaponry here. You have, the stag can put his head down and charge and gore somebody with those antlers. And metaphorically, you have that same power, whether you feel like you do or not. You are strong enough to do this. What Ascended Masters cards do we have? We have Merlin with energy healing. And Pallas Athena with detach from drama. Is there somebody around you that you feel ill around? Somebody that you feel slightly repulsed by? Someone, after you're around them, you just kind of feel like, ugh. Pay attention to that feeling. And detach from drama. Remain calm. She has this sword in her hand, but it is pointed downward and her hand is up. She doesn't necessarily need to put that sword out at anybody, but it is there. She needs it, just like the stag has the antlers. When the stag's standing normally, the antlers are in a safe position, right? It takes an action for that stag to lower his head and charge forward. It takes an action for her to raise that sword and thrust it into an opponent. So, while you have the weapons, metaphorical weapons, I want to stress that, metaphorical weapons that you need, you don't have to go in charging with them. The whole walk softly, carry a big stick cliche. The power isn't just in the metaphorical weapon. It is in the energy that you bring to this. It is in being able to remain calm as you can. If you need to vent when you are not around your child, if you need to let it out, then by all means. And that can be anything from punching a pillow or screaming into it, to crying in the bath, to talking to a licensed therapist. But the energy that you bring into it is going to influence how your handling of the situation goes. And the more measured and even you can be when addressing this, the more you can have clarity, because it is such an emotionally volatile sort of situation that you can go from 0 to 60 in half a freaking second, and there goes your clarity. And when you lose your clarity, you lose your ability to change anything. If you're mired in high-pitched emotion, it diminishes your effectiveness in being able to help your child. Okay, these are, okay, I'm not going to explain it, I'm just going to... Misophonia refers to particular noises being painful. There may be noises that are associated with the person or people that are harming this child. That there may be noises that they hear outside of the situation that trigger them because they are associated with the situation. It might be even particular songs, music, just people being loud or aggressive or having a certain tone in their voice that is similar to the tone that is used on this child. And pressure is pretty self-explanatory. This kid's holding so much in. I mean, there's so many cards that came out in this pile. There's like 3 or 4 times as many cards came out in this pile as any other of these readings. The letting go of anger cards are ways to help your child deal with their emotions. It says that they're cards to help teens tame frustration, but really they're tips that can be modified so they're applicable to anybody. Time beyond now. Okay, well, the card speaks to, will this bother me in a few months or years? And usually the answer is no. And it's valid advice, but not particularly for this situation. I think for this situation it is more, this is not going to last forever. More communicating to your kid that this pain, the intensity that you feel, is not going to last forever. We will find a way through this. You are not ruined. You are not doomed. You are not trapped. There is going to be a beautiful day when we get through this. And we will get through this. That is the thing, that you need to be the certainty for your kid. Even if you yourself feel a bit uncertain inside, it's normal to feel that way. But know that you will get through this. It has to be addressed. Your kid is going to have a lot of stuff to work through. The most important thing is getting your kid out of the situation. But right up next to that, like 1.5 on the most important thing list, is how your kid feels. Because this is something that, if not properly handled, will be an obstacle for them for the rest of their life and bleed out into every other thing that they do, every decision that they make, the very core of their identity. So letting them know that, giving them the support, and it's okay to feel the things that most people say you shouldn't express. They need a safe place to let all of these emotions out. Their emotions are tangled. Knot it up. They are in immense pain and they are holding it inside. And not only is that detrimental for them emotionally, but it's also detrimental for them physically, because all of that stress is going to lead to health problem upon health problem upon health problem. There's stuff going on in their brain that is going to lead to free radicals. Basically, it's when somebody is stressed out, a lot of chemicals happen, and one of those chemicals is glutamate. And glutamate is helpful, but only to an extent. If you have too much of it, it leads to something which is basically oxidative stress. And if you look up oxidative stress on Google, you will find a host of health conditions, from blood pressure problems, circulation problems, diabetes, pain, chronic fatigue, cancer. So stress matters. It matters for your kid, and it matters for you too. Say I can. The next time you have a frustrating obstacles, try saying I can instead of I can't. Notice how you feel unstuck and inspired. Okay. You may not feel inspired. You may not feel unstuck in this particular situation by saying I can, but it is going to be infinitely better for you to say I can than I can't, even if you have to force yourself at first. Because you can. You can do this. You can help your child, and they can get through this. You can get through this. Stay out of the heat. Identify your hot thoughts that spike your anger. I feel like this is for everybody on your kid's side of the situation, let's say. Some examples may be, it is not fair, I have to do everything, or everyone is bothering me, or I hate this. Cool down those hot thoughts with less extreme, more reasonable self-talk. For example, remind yourself that you don't have to do everything, not everyone bothers you all the time, and that hating hurls you into negativity and anger. I think that in this situation, it is easy to think that everybody is horrible, that everyone is a predator. That is not the case. Although it is a very convenient mindset for a predator to get a victim into, because it just keeps the victim along the path of victimhood and allows the predator to feed off of them. But try and remember, even if you do not have a single soul around you right now that you feel like you can trust, that does not mean everyone in the world is like that. Ready, set, go. Work on being less impulsive by thinking about these 3 things in this order. Ready, set, go. Reflect on how much smoother your life will be with ready, set, go, instead of going through life impulsively with go, set, ready. So this is speaking of impulse control. Speaking of strategy, it's speaking of walking softly but carrying a big stick. You want to think your moves through before you make them. That doesn't mean take a long time and overthink them. But it means to look at each move objectively. Think them through. What will the ripple effects be? What is the best way to handle each step? so as to maximize the benefit to you and your child primarily, obviously, but you know, I just messed up the order there. To maximize the benefit to your child and yourself. To minimize or eliminate the chance of factors coming in that are unnecessary, that could possibly make a situation worse. Such as popping off at somebody who, frankly, really deserves it. But if you do, you blow your strategy. You know, you may want to run up to somebody and grab them by the collar and tell them you know exactly what's going on. That's not the best way to address it, because you just gave that person a chance to get away. Don't let a predator know what your move is before you make it. Calculate your move. Make yourself aware of all of the factors that either affect that move or will be generated by that move. And then make the move. And when the move is made, then they'll find out. Resist the completely normal human impulse to let somebody know that you know what's up. It does not matter if they know or don't know. I mean, it does matter actually for your strategy, but I mean, it doesn't help the situation if they know first. The only thing doing that does is it gives you maybe half a second of feeling better, half a second of emotional relief, half a second of alleviating the pressure that you're feeling. It's not helping your kid. So that benefit is so small, it's worth the effort to stay composed. Grab some gratitude. Reflect on at least 3 things you are grateful for. This is more to help cultivate that view that not everyone is like this, not everything is like this, and not everything is terrible. There is so much negative momentum generated in a situation such as this. Having just a moment to say, okay, what is good in life right now? What is the bright side? Even if the bright side is just so small, what is that? Just taking that moment to reflect on what can I be grateful for here? Even if it's being grateful that the situation isn't worse than it is. That breaks up the momentum, because you're taking your focus off of the runaway train of horribleness and putting it onto something else. And I mean, just a few moments is all you need. You know, just 5 or 10 minutes. It's just a breath of fresh air. So you can go back into it basically and not be fallen by it, not let it knock you down, because it's a heavy energy, and you want to make sure that you too get enough sleep. You need sleep as well. You need rest. If you find yourself getting into a knot when you're thinking things through, and you start to become confused about what the right move is, that means you need to step away from it mentally for just a short period of time, to go outside and walk around and experience nature, or take a warm bath, or do something to break things up. Spend 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour or what have you getting yourself back in alignment. You know, if it's listening to a comedian, you know, even if you don't laugh at anything, just something that is neutral or positive, an influence that is neutral or positive, preferably positive, such as nature, such as giving yourself a little bit of self-care. And your child needs the same thing. Just something to get your mind off of the weight of it for long enough that you can get a breath. Watch that door. Picture yourself slamming a door in your mind. And now picture yourself gently closing it. Feel good about practicing the gift of self-control. This speaks to the keeping a cool head as much as is possible for you. But it also speaks to the immense power that you have by maintaining your composure and letting the energy that would go into any sort of force, let that energy go into your strategy. Because you can slam a door or you can gently close it. Either way, you have the power to take that door from being an open door to a closed door in this example, right? So there's actually a lot more power in gently closing it. And it's stealth too, because if you slam a door, if you do something in a forceful or violent way, then you just gave yourself away. You gave your whole strategy away to everybody. You gave them an advantage they do not need and they do not deserve. Gently closing it. You can close the door and nobody hears that door shut. And they can just keep assuming it's open and walk right into it. Let's pretend it's a sliding glass door, shall we? If you slam the sliding glass door, you could shatter the door, or you just alert the person that you're trying to block that that door has been slammed. And they can figure out a way, when you're not looking, to lift it off the tracks and get it anyway. If you close it gently, then they may just walk right into it and knock themselves out. Okay. Empathic Oracle card, Stardust. Your kid is very special. I'm getting starseed from this, which is, there's a lot that goes behind saying starseed, but to keep it simplified, your child has gifts. Your child has light. Your child has magic. And that's why the shadow is trying to cover your kid up. That's why your kid's being preyed on. Because your kid's special, and just like all kids are special, but your kid's really got a lot of light in them. And light attracts the darkness as far as people go. And I can't give you much of an explanation on that, except it's corrupt people enjoy corrupting what is good. Morally derelict people enjoy destroying what is beautiful, what is opposite of them. Holiday. When there isn't this sort of an influence over your child's life. It is going to take them a bit to trust the good things. It's going to take them a bit to get back into that magical energy that every kid should be allowed to grow up in. And unfortunately, so many kids don't get to grow up in that magical energy. But it is possible. This reminds me of the Christmas tree from A Charlie Brown Christmas, because of the one bulb hanging off and then the branches sort of like swaying over, and it's really heavy and everything. But the kids finally accept the fact that Charlie Brown got that tree, and they surround it with love and support. It is beautifully decorated, and it is able to stand on its own. So I think that the same is true of your child. Get enough love and support and goodness around your child. And this will not always be a heavy weight on them. They will be able to stand up straight and stand on their own. And experience beauty in this world, instead of the darkness that they are being currently subjected to. Clearing. I think this speaks, we had the card of energy healing with Merlin. And so, I mean, your kid definitely needs help clearing this negative momentum and negative energy. Putting good into their lives as much as possible, as much as you're able to. But the feathers also speak to the fact that you are not alone in this. You always have energetic support from your crossed over loved one, who is, I'm being told, is absolutely with you guys. And Archangel Michael is the archangel of strength and protection. And where you stand on angels and archangels, I don't know. I'm not particularly religious, although, boy, you sure wouldn't know that, because I refer to the angels a lot. That's because I have had experiences that have opened my eyes to the fact that there really is a force that looks after all of us and that sees every single thing. I can say with absolute certainty, you are not alone. Can I quantify that and tell you, here's definitive proof? All I could do is tell you examples from my own life. It requires belief on your part too. But whether or not you believe it, I am telling you it is true. And the predators of this world want you to think that it's not. Why? Because it's easier to take advantage of somebody who thinks that they have not a single ally. Why buy into their worldview? Their world is ugly. This world is beautiful. The actual intention of this world is beauty and joy. The hell with them. The hell with their ugliness and their abuse and their laziness. Their laziness, because it is not difficult to not be horrible. But it does require looking at your own life, looking at yourself. And predators don't do that, because if they did, they wouldn't be able to stand themselves. They wouldn't be able to exist for another second. So instead, they just go after impulse after impulse after impulse, without stopping to think of the impact, or if they delight in the impact, that's like way, way, way far down that food chain, where like way, way back, at the beginning of the trail, like whenever they were wounded, right? Because there's always an initial wound. Nobody becomes a predator out of nowhere. Every villain does have a backstory. But some people feed that food chain, and they just keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it because they feel justified. And then after they feel justified, then they feel like, oh wait, this is actually preferable. I have it over everyone because I just fulfill whatever twisted impulse I have at whatever twisted time I have it on anybody. Consequences be damned. Maybe I'm feeling your anger and expressing it so you don't have to. I try to be compassionate towards people. And that extends to people that society has a problem with. But it only goes so far. When someone gleefully, okay, that's past willfully. Willfully is one thing, because people can convince themselves that they cannot change, or that they are bad, and so this is just how they are. But when they take joy in it, I'm sorry. I'm not a saint. Accept the gifts of the universe. Fake it till you make it. Call on your runners. Okay. This is saying call on your guides for help. And call on any resources that you may have available to you. I will try and put as much information as I can in the description, because not everybody has a whole bunch of resources readily available to them. But hold on to the idea that they are out there, that you do have resources. And just because you cannot see them in this particular moment does not mean they don't exist. Hold on to the hope and the positive and the belief that happy days will come again, as much as you can, because that mindset will only help you. Accept the gifts of the universe. Fake it till you make it. There is some serendipity that will come from the steps that you take, the positive momentum that you generate by taking well-considered, effective, strategic steps to end this abuse. Each of those steps will create their own momentum, and it will help draw your assistance in. fake it till you make it. It's kind of like what we were just talking about with maintaining that attitude of somehow, even if I cannot see it right this moment, things are going to work out. There will be better days. There will be happiness and beauty again. There will be room away from this ugliness. That is possible. If you hang on to that, like again, it's only going to help you. Wow, there are a lot of these. Okay. These cards are based on cognitive behavioral therapy. They're for your kid. And I just want to show you there's 4 relaxing and being cards. And there's 2 making art cards. There's also a caregiver card, which is for you. I'm going to read this one first. Afraid of the dark. A dark room can make children feel anxious at night. If your child is afraid of the dark, install a dimmer switch in the child's bedroom. Let them decide when they are ready to dim it a little and praise them for being brave. Use a similar approach to help them face other fears. This includes the fear of telling you what's going on. Please let them know how strong they are and how brave they are and how good they are. They need to hear those things. They need to hear those things desperately. And the dimmer switch, they're talking about like light and dark, but also your kid likely is going to be trying to figure out where are the exits whenever they're in in any space. It's a response to trauma to have an exit plan, because they have been so trapped in the situation. The fear of being in other situations where they can't get out is magnified to the nth degree. I have had many traumatic experiences, and part of having post-traumatic stress disorder is absolutely, where is the door? Hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a big thing, because there was no protection for whatever reason from whatever trauma has happened. And so the human response is to think, I am the only person who can protect myself, and I have to have a plan, and I have to be on guard, and I have to defend myself. And that's why there's 4 relaxing and being cards here, because your kid is like so tense and so knotted up, and so please be mindful that hypervigilance is a thing with your kid. You don't want to feed into it so much that it becomes an acceptable coping mechanism. But you want to address it so that you can comfort them and let them know. Give them a sense of safety so they can relax a little bit. Because being you can be hypervigilant when you're sleeping. You know, it may seem like the kid's getting rest. Maybe they're going to bed on time and they're getting up on time, but fitful sleep. Just that I'm like right in that energy, because I know it so well. Feeling that you always have to be on guard, that at any moment you could be done for. Please acknowledge that feeling exists in your child, and do whatever you can to give your kid a sense of safety. When we're under stress, we can relax our senses by touching different textures and focusing on how these textures feel. This is speaking to getting your kid into a healthier physical sense. because a lot of their physical responses may be adversely associated with this abuse. And part of the response to trauma and abuse is numbing yourself so you don't feel anything. Because even feeling the good things can hurt. But this is saying that you have an opportunity to head that off at the pass. That maybe you cannot completely change that, and maybe it's not overnight, but helping your child process and understand that there are still ways they can feel good and be in their physical body. A response to trauma is to disassociate. You get spacey. You're not really cognizant of what's going on around you. Things get fuzzy. You may find that your kid has memory problems or attention problems or inability to concentrate. That is because the only way that they survive abuse is basically to go out of their body and to go off somewhere where they're not fully present in what is happening to them. And our brain likes to create grooves, kind of, familiar tracks. We find coping mechanisms, and the coping mechanisms can turn themselves into ways of life. So intervention is needed to make sure that any of these coping mechanisms that have developed to protect your child from things that should never have been part of their existence to begin with, to ensure that those coping mechanisms don't become a way of life for your kid. That they don't become avoidant of everything. That they don't stay guarded and shield themselves from everything. Because they're going to be shielding themselves from so much of the good stuff that could save them. So bringing them into a sense of there are safe places in the world. There are good people in the world. There is still magic and beauty in the world. And it is okay to experience and feel that. And it doesn't mean just because you have a good time that, oh, well, obviously you're not hurt anymore. Because that's also kind of bullshit. When, like your kid's hurt and then they are able to have maybe half an hour, an hour, or maybe even a whole day of having a nice time for once. And then people assume, oh, okay, well then they've worked it out, it's fine. No, it's not. And their pain is still valid. And it doesn't mean that they're hanging on to things. People process things in their own time. And with kids, it's just so much more complicated. Because they're forming impressions of the world with every experience. Every experience is defining for them their worldview, their perspective, and their expectations. And they have a good time, then all of a sudden people think, anybody has this perception that, oh, well, they're all healed, they're fine, before they're actually healed. It creates so many problems that I don't even know if I can go into them all. But it throws them out of alignment. It's okay to need time to heal from things, and it's okay to have a break from that heaviness. And it doesn't invalidate pain, and it doesn't say anybody is faking and being worse off, pretending to be worse off than they actually are. It means that they are being blessed with a little freaking relief. And if they still have issues, that is all right, because they still have stuff that needs to be processed. And I'm not sure where else to go on that, because I feel like you get it. Yoga is a great tool to relieve stress because it helps you relax. This is another positive, a way for them to positively experience their body, because they're getting so much negative information about their body, and so much negativity is living in the energy of their physicality, the way that they experience their body. The message from the very beginning, that insecurity, it is not only just about appearance, but it's about the capability of their body, the good things, because kids can look at their bodies as being inherently bad because they've been abused. So they can start to be blind to all the positive aspects about their physicality, including like ones of utility, and like ones of, like, it actually feels good to be in a body, right? That's basically what it is. It's like, because disassociating has been like such a, the only way to get a modicum of distance, that there's going to be an inclination to maintain a distance from their body. And yoga also helps open up the intuition, because there's a wholeness about being able to experience your body in a non-invasive, non-aggressive, non-impact oriented way. And like some people, find a lot of relief in doing things like running or lifting weights or whatever, but also being able to find the relief in a gentle, fluid activity that, like yoga, that also teaches you in a way to be still. You're being still, but at the same time there's movement. It's a sort of a paradox. But and the stretching too, the flexibility, because there's a growth in that process, to where, maybe 2 weeks ago they couldn't touch their toes and now they can. And little incremental bits of progress like that, even though, it may not sound like it would be the most effective thing, it really can open up, or begin to open up, help facilitate the opening up of a different experience, not only of the way that they live in their body, but their own empowerment, if that makes sense. Listening mindfully. During times of stress, we can ground our minds by paying attention to the sounds around us. Now, it suggests listening to breathing or going outside, but mindfully, also listening mindfully, I feel like because of the misophonia card that we had earlier, that this is, oh, that's the wrong card. Sorry about that. It's under there. There is some difficulty with certain sounds. So you can listen mindfully and observe and see if there are particular sounds, particular tones, particular songs, what have you, that where you can see an immediate impact on your child, so that you can kind of cultivate a more comfortable sonic environment. And this extends to the media that they take in too, because if they're watching a lot of shows that are violent, or where people are very dramatic, or unnecessarily overly emotional, those things can have an impact that isn't like immediately obvious, that doesn't, you know, present as, oh, clearly that's the problem, right? But it can add extra pressure and stress, and also the sort of hopeless feeling, and it's just overwhelming. And this child is already so overwhelmed that they just need some peace. And that's the relaxing and being. They need to be able to relax again, to not be on guard. Noodle. Think of yourself as a noodle. First, make your muscles hard and straight like an uncooked noodle. Quickly count to 10, then let your body be a limp, loose cooked noodle. It's funny to walk or dance like a loose noodle. The tension and release in the muscles. Trauma, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and I will put a link to that. Trauma is held in the body. And so if someone has been subjected to trauma, had traumatic experiences, they can walk around with every muscle tense as anything and not even realize it. Gritting their teeth and not even realizing it. Right now I have enormous tension in my muscles because of connecting with the energy of this child, and also it's, I mean, I relate more than I can even tell you or would want to tell you, because this reading is about your kid, it's not about me. But being able to relax. I mean, okay, I will tell you, I noticed, and this was only a few years ago, that when I would lay down in my bed to go to sleep, it was like I was holding myself up. All my muscles were so tensed that it was like I was trying to, I don't know, balance myself in between like a chair at my head and a chair at my feet, like keep my body stiff enough to you know, stay stiff as a board and hold up my middle with no support, right? I did, just because I was so tense. And so actively, mindfully, like being aware of tensing up each muscle, like, you know, starting with your toes and your feet, and, you know, tensing up and then letting go. They're already tense, but that extra tension, like, it makes them aware of it. And then there is that cognizance, that concentrated, like, letting go, where they can feel some relief from that constant grip. Because when animals go through trauma, their tendency is to shake, and it shakes it out of them. They have an immediate reaction. But when, sorry, I have to get a drink. I am so sorry. When you have to act like everything's okay, it doesn't go anywhere. That tension stays in you. It stays in your energy, and it stays in your physical body. And that's your child needs some relief from that. Desperately. Making art. This actually will help so much too. Lighten your load and happy pictures. For lighten your load, when we have a lot going on, it can feel like we're carrying heavy weights, which slow us down. Yeah, or when you're tense, it can also, you're carrying huge weight that slows you down. Draw yourself with weights on your shoulders. Then cut the weights off with scissors, rip them up, and throw them away. That is great. That is great. There is an unspoken sort of resolution there. It's going to help your child visualize that it will not always feel this heavy. It's a nice little sort of visual exercise, and also you can get clues about what areas in their self-esteem need your help the most by the depiction, the way that they draw themselves. Because how they see themselves has been distorted by this. And so if you can get them to draw themselves with the weights on their shoulders and cut the weights off, you can also see how is it that they're drawing themselves? What is their self-perception? What are the things that stand out about their depiction of themselves? Happy pictures. If you feel sad or upset, one way to make yourself feel better is to look at pictures that you like. These could be pictures of superheroes, sports, or your favorite foods, or something else you enjoy. Cut out pictures from magazines and glue your favorite ones onto a piece of paper. This is kind of like a vision board for your child, but a vision board of joy, of happiness, of possibility. You know, less goal-oriented, more just there is beauty in the world oriented. There is happiness still oriented. There are still things that I like oriented. You know, again, taking the focus off of the heavy weight and momentum of the negativity and the abuse, and bringing some light in. And celebration. Be open to the benefits of technology. Okay. Now, this deck is for kids that have ADHD, but I find sometimes that the parenting tips in here are applicable for all kids. Here, they're saying that the challenge is kids tend to think about using technology mostly for fun, but it can be very useful with planning, organizing, and recall. I think that it's a useful thing to assist your child with using technology in ways that empower them and that help them. And in doing so, this will steer them away from using technology to disassociate. What can happen is you end up on social media scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it's a crapshoot what you're going to see. As we all know, anyone who has been on social media knows that when you're in a feed, anything can come up. And basically what that's doing is you're just allowing the randomness of an algorithm, which is not designed for your well-being, but it instead is designed for interests other than your own. You're allowing that to determine your thoughts at any given moment when you're just mindlessly scrolling through a feed. But it's something that is easy to do when you're feeling lost, or you're feeling empty, or you're feeling damaged. Because there's sort of a subconscious hope that there will be something good there that will make you feel better. The thing to do here is to help your kid find those ways where the technology supports them and boosts them and fortifies them, rather than allows them to escape to a place that isn't a good escape, or fall into even more predation, frankly. The standard feed can be harmful for an adult. So for a kid with a developing mind, it's just, the recall also, because the memory issues, if they are empowered in using technology and they can use it in a way, say, like a creative project, where they can channel things into a creative project, and then the technology becomes a tool to research for that project and to learn and to find out, and then enhance that curiosity. Because if you get stuck in a feed, that feeds the hypervigilance, because there's going to be triggers there, and the avoidance, and it kills curiosity. Because if you're just scrolling and you know, every other thing that you see is something that makes you feel awful inside, then you're going to start avoiding everything. And you're not going to be curious about anything, because you're going to have this view of anything new as being dangerous. So really, I think the main message here is to help your child use technology to fortify themselves and learn to avoid or eschew those ways that technology can most certainly and very easily tear them down. Any platform can be harmful, but there are helpful things out there too. And so it's steering your child to the helpful things, teaching them how to use technology in a way that benefits them, and in a way that makes them feel good. And so much of that is self-determination. Having a purpose when you get on the phone or the computer. Having an objective instead of just killing time. The undue influence deck. I forgot about that. Okay. Angels and guides, please bring through the best information that will be helpful to this parent, guardian, or caregiver in having some sort of intuitive, okay, there's a group of people, at least for someone, that this message resonates with. Okay, I'm being told to draw a couple more. Okay, so that's at least one situation. It is a group of people. Okay, we got 2 more cards out. Someone they see 1 to 3 times a week. Someone seen once a week. Is that... Okay, I'm being told that we're done with the undue influence card. So, if this reading resonates for you, then... Do you want me to... No, okay. Yes? No. Okay, sorry, I'm getting confirmation there. Because one of the cards seemed to want to pop off, and I had just been told that that was it. And so I just wanted to double check that I didn't need to grab that one also. If one of these things makes you... Who do you think of immediately? If one of these cards calls to you. Or more. Who springs to mind? Pay attention to that impulse, that thought. And I am sending you so much love. I am so sorry that you are dealing with this situation. If this reading resonates for you, I want you to know you're not alone. And there will be better days for your child and for you. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps. Much love and light. Take care.